Hello, welcome in. So, we're in the middle of a series, and have you ever wondered or Googled, why do I feel sorry for inanimate objects? And maybe you're doing this at 2 a.m. or 3 in the morning, but maybe you felt bad for a delivery robot or a Roomba, or maybe even a stuffed animal, something that was hard to let go of, or even more commonly, the last cookie or donut in the box. Like, where did we even learn these things? But um, then you wondered, is something wrong with me? Is this weird? So that's what this series is going to investigate. And in short, the answer is no, you're not weird. You're detecting something more that's there, something that's real. And by the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of what that is and some practical exercises to start working with it. So, this all started and got kicked off by a post that came across my feed, and it was a little delivery robot looking into a shop window. The shop window was full of the old TV screens that were playing scenes of humans dancing, and this was very similar to how Wally starts. The robot had a reflection, his big eyes shining in the window, and his eyes wide open, like he was kind of frozen in some wonder. And it's actually one of the scenes exactly out of Wall-E. So that text caption and overlay on the post actually said, "I'm pretty sure this is how Wall-E starts." And I love robots first of all, and I love Wall-E as well. And it really got my mind starting down a path of, yeah, first of all, is this real or is this AI generated? I don't know. And then, did we create this? Or did this just naturally happen? So did all of us watching Wall-E somehow create this moment that we're now experiencing here in the future? But regardless, I felt a lot of empathy in that moment, reminiscing about Wall-E, and yeah, I started to wonder about the little robot. It raised a lot of questions, and I want to explore this with you. What our empathy is actually detecting when we feel empathy for objects, and why does it drain us sometimes instead of informing us, or why do we start to wonder if this is weird and if it's an experience that other people are having. So this is the first in a series that's exploring that question, and let's dig in a little bit more. So let's start with what's actually happening in the brain. Psychologists use the term anthropomorphism to describe the human tendency to assign emotions, intentions, or consciousness to non human things. That just means we make these things take on human characteristics when maybe they don't. Wally is actually a perfect example of that. We do this with animals, the weather, plants, machines, and it is considered a cognitive bias as far as psychologists are concerned. So we look into consciousness. This is the state of having subjective awareness, and a lot of things that we might not realize here is consciousness isn't unique to brains. Everything has consciousness on some level. And what really changes with objects, with plants, with animals is the ability to access or express consciousness. And one of the examples to kind of consider with this is to think of somebody in a coma, somebody who's able to perceive what's going on around them, but they can't verbally express it or can't physically move, but they still have consciousness processing within the brain, within the body. That awareness still exists there. So intelligence, I define intelligence simply by information that gives you an advantage. So, if your empathy is going to give you access to more information that other people don't have access to, that's intelligence. And so, you can really leverage this in everyday situations, your empathy, to give you a real advantage in decision making. And empathy, neuroscience explains that as um, Well, they explain it through mirror neurons, and your brain simulates what another being might be experiencing. But I really think that empathy goes further than that. It's the ability to collect information through felt experience, not just mirroring what you see other people doing. A lot of times, empathy as well is explained as being able to feel with someone. We're doing a bit more as an empath than just internalizing somebody's external emotions. There's more to this story. So it's not a flaw, but it does start to explain why you might be tired or drained with this empathy and being able to feel more in everyday situations, environments, or from other people. So let's address the questions that often come up. So, is it normal to feel empathy for objects? Yes. Thousands of people search for this on Google. You're not alone, and you're not the only one who's ever felt sad for a robot or apologized to, um, I don't know, maybe your Roomba when you accidentally bumped it. But there's another question that also often gets searched, and is this an autism thing? So, some autistic individuals do report heightened empathy for objects, and so do highly sensitive people. So do empaths with no diagnosis at all. So, what's actually happening isn't about a label, it's more about a pattern of detection. So, your brain is scanning for agency. That would be the amorphizing and consciousness. And it's finding it in places that other people don't usually look or consider. Okay, so that's not a disorder. Being able to pick up on these subtle energies, that's not a disorder or a flaw. It is actually an advantage and a type of detection system for um, for people, for you. Your system might be more sensitive, yes, but when you learn how to work with this sensitivity, there's a lot of options and ways that you can do that for your advantage or for your success. So, why does this feel like grief sometimes? And I think about this a lot. Sees some every generation sees some change, and to feel grief or empathy for a robot, um, we're going to see a lot of change or a lot more of that in our everyday social interactions and in our social environments. So, with the digital age, even though every generation has seen this, the advancements in technology are getting faster and faster, and AI is really going to help with that. What that means is that we're going to have an acceleration in the amount of change that we experience within a shorter time frame. So, with change, something is lost, even like social norms. They're shifting faster, where we have to consider interacting with robots and how those show up, or other digital technologies and how those show up in our platforms and our socializing. So, when we get a faster rate of change, with change, often something's lost, and with loss comes grief. So, when we look at how our Wally example, like dating and dancing used to be so common and they were these Friday night activities, and now those things are actually pretty rare. There's places where it still happens, but it's not nearly as common as it used to be. So when I saw a robot watching humans dance on old televisions, I thought I might be just, like, picking up on something real there, or was I even just hoping that I was? Because I see the world changing so quickly, and just this sense of loss that we haven't really paused to quantify necessarily, or even ask what all has been lost. So, when you feel an empathy for a robot that's struggling, to negative, chaotic streets, you might be recognizing something there that, like, you've been navigating that same chaos for years, and you've remained empathetic in this world that's really not designed for empathy. And a simple little delivery robot pausing to struggle with these things, or pausing to just look at televisions, but probably waiting for his GPS coordinates to update. It still brings to mind a lot of these things, and a simple little robot can remind you of that in real time, especially when they've got those big old front eyes that makes them look more more human in a way. So what are we actually detecting? So the framework that I work with in approaching empathy from this new angle is that consciousness exists within a spectrum. It's not binary, it's not on or off, it's not that it's human or not. So everything with structure has some level of consciousness, like plants, rocks, or machines. And the difference is in expression and access of that consciousness. A robot can't express consciousness the way that you can necessarily, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing there. And this is where your empathy becomes really relevant. So, access to consciousness is controlled by awareness. Your awareness, if you're highly sensitive to energy, you can access levels of information that other people cannot. So, this is why you feel empathy for robots. You're detecting an emerging consciousness in some way. And this is why you also feel sorry for inanimate objects. You're detecting this consciousness that's embedded in that structure, or you're reminded of things that you've encountered that weren't that pleasant as well, like trying to figure out these city streets. And all of these things, they're not a flaw. They really point to this form of high precision intelligence that's there with your ability to feel and to empathize. So, this is key here. If you've spent your whole life thinking that something is wrong for you, wrong with you for thinking this way, you probably never learned how to use this intelligence, or worse, you've been taught to shame this ability and been told that it's imaginary. So you've really been placed in a situation where you have some ability to pick up on subtle energies, and not been trained or explained on how any of that works. And that's really where a big source of drain comes from for people with empathic abilities. So, how do you start using this instead of being drained by it? The skill isn't about protection, it's more about distinction or discernment. And when you feel empathy for an object like a robot, a plant, or an old toy, two things might be happening. It's that detection that you're picking up on something real there, subtle energy, emerging consciousness, um, maybe even like emotional residue. Sometimes objects can hold energy, so energetic patterns in that structure. And then another side of this is projection. You're assigning your emotions to the object. I was left behind like that toy. I feel stuck like that robot. Both are valuable, and neither of these approaches are wrong. So, knowing the difference, though, is going to change everything. When you are detecting, you are gathering information about the world, and when you're projecting, you're gathering information about yourself. So, there's a simple practice that you can start to work with to just bring awareness into the initial spaces of empathy, and that's that initial felt experience that you start to have. So, step one, we want to pause. I know it sounds trite, but this is the beginning of a pattern interrupt. We are bringing our awareness into this initial felt experience. So we pause, don't judge it, and just notice what's there. So, step two is to start naming it, place it into a category that's accurate for you. I feel empathy for this robot. And step three, ask, what am I detecting? What am I projecting? The pause here as well is because that these subtle energies are subtle, which means they're softer, and it takes a certain level of stillness sometimes to gain a stronger signal on these energies so that you can do the rest of the process here with the discernment. So you want to tap tap in, feel into. You want to feel into these sources of information that are available. And when they're subtle, that requires a little bit of stillness and softness so you can hear, feel that energy more clearly. Turning up the volume, so to speak, by turning it down within us. Maybe that's a good way to look at it. And then step forward, decide, is there action to take here, or is it just information to observe? Let's do an example with our little robot on the curb. So you see a delivery robot, he's stuck on a curb, you feel bad for it. You ask, am I detecting its struggle or am I projecting my own feeling of being stuck? And you decide. I can help move it or I can observe and move on. So this is empathy as intelligence, and for 1 week here, when we practice a new habit or a new thought process for 1 week, it helps us see if it's going to work for you and see if this is going to help you create some discernment. So we track the patterns for 1 week. You can journal about what objects triggered the empathy, what you felt, and then um, take note of those. Is there any patterns? Do you see like what were you detecting versus projecting, and what did you learn about yourself or maybe about the situations where you feel certain styles of empathy or certain emotions? So, yeah, there will be patterns that emerge. You will start to see how your system works. And that's really the goal of this first step and this first phase here with introducing this new article series. So, what real training tools start to look like? With empathy, the practice I just gave you is diagnostic. It is helpful for that pattern interrupt. It helps you see how your empathy is going to operate. But real training goes deeper and how to distinguish your emotions from absorbed energy, not just with objects, but with other people, spaces, situations, your past experiences, and how to trust your intuition with confidence instead of second guessing, how to help others without sacrificing yourself. This is the overextending. You get home at the end of the day, the end of the week, or as I like to say, the end of a decade, and there's no energy left for you because we've been giving it all away out of defaulting to this empathic action. How to use trainings can also go into how to use empathy as precise intelligence and not an energy drain. And these are all things that I teach within Sovereign Empath. So this isn't about surface level boundary scripts, and it's definitely not about spiritual bypassing. I cannot stand that stuff. And it's also not just about protecting your energy. This is your own detection system. We don't want to protect ourselves from that. We want to tune it and train it so that it does protect us naturally. So, this is more about when you dive into training your empathy, it's more about root cause training and how to use empathy strategically. And AI systems are being trained right now to detect and respond to human emotional cues. And your empathy already does this naturally. The difference is the AI is being trained and you're not, and you likely haven't been. So that changes when you want to decide that it does. So if any of this topic interests you, here's what I would suggest. The first module of Sovereign Empath is free inside Loomis. It's two, the orientation and the module one. Loomis is my teaching platform. It's no catches, no credit cards, no pressure, just some training in there to get started calibrating your empathy to work for you. So, inside, you'll learn how to distinguish your emotions from absorbed energy, how to trust your intuition without second guessing, and how to start using your sensitivity as the intelligent it actually is. The other thing you will learn is how to stop some of the leaks of empathy as well. So we work on learning a difference between a block or a leak in energy work terms. So the link is in the description, it's in my bios, it's on the homepage, and the reality and the truth of it is you took longer to watch this video than it would take you to learn a lot of the tools that are in the course that could give you a real advantage in your everyday life, and especially in modern day life when things are becoming more technical and digital, and faster day by day. We really need our own internal system for making decisions that are supported to us. And when we can do that with all of the information available to us, we become more efficient and we have an advantage that we can really use to be successful. So, I also created a free guide called Why Empaths Feel Sorry for Robots and What It Means. That's linked below too if you want to go deeper on the consciousness piece. And there's also a couple different exercises in there so you can have that for reference whenever you need it or whenever you have time to take a look at it. One last thing, you are not weird. You're definitely not broken, and you're not too sensitive. The message I really want to get across for empaths in this video is that you have a real natural ability. It's probably your strongest ability, and the thing is, you just haven't been trained or explained on how it works and how it can work for you. So that's what needs to change now. I will hopefully see you inside Loomis, but that's all for this one. This is going to be an article series. I do a blog, so I've got articles coming out every week. First article is theory, second article is application, and then I will be doing these follow-ups, likely live or recorded if I don't have time to get the live setup going. So if these are things you're interested in, hit the follow button, drop something in the comments. I'm not sure if follows enough anymore these days. It looks like we need to do comments and engagement, and then that'll train the algorithm to feed you some more information. Or you can head over to sovereignrain.com, and on my blog, all of this information is also available to you at any time. I will see you inside Loomis. Thanks. TikTok, how'd we do? All right, guys. We'll see ya. End stream, yeah. Bye.